What if the most explosive claims you've heard weren't new at all, just recycled, reshaped, and weaponized at the perfect moment? Think about that for a second. Because right now, across social media, YouTube thumbnails, anonymous blogs, and whisper networks, one name is being dragged back into a narrative many people claim they always knew was true. A narrative that feels scandalous. A narrative that feels inevitable. A narrative that feels convenient. And at the center of it all is a single question that refuses to go away. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Did Ghislaine Maxwell really expose secret details about Meghan Markle's past? Or are we watching something far more calculated unfold in real time? Before you answer, let me warn you. This story is not what it looks like on the surface. And the reason it matters right now has less to do with yachts, celebrities, or even crimes, and everything to do with how truth gets bent, blurred, and broadcast in the digital age. Because once a claim is repeated enough times, it stops sounding like a rumor. It starts sounding like a fact. And that's where things get dangerous. Let me ask you something directly. How many times have you heard a headline, felt that jolt of outrage, and immediately thought, I knew it, before ever asking where the claim came from? Be honest. We've all done it. That emotional hit. That rush of confirmation. That sense that the puzzle pieces finally fit. And that is exactly why this story has exploded the way it has. Because it doesn't rely on evidence first. It relies on emotion first. Outrage first. Assumption first. Now, let's be clear about something before we go any further. This is not a defense piece. This is not a hit piece. This is not about protecting anyone's image or tearing it down. This is about tracing a viral narrative back to its origin and asking a question that very few people want to ask out loud. What is actually proven? And what is being implied so loudly that it feels proven? And why now? Why is this narrative resurfacing at this exact moment? Because timing, as you're about to see, is everything. In recent months, the Epstein and Maxwell cases have re-entered public conversation yet again. New documentaries, old footage resurfaced, archived court records reanalyzed by creators hunting for the next viral breakthrough. And with every resurgence, the same pattern repeats itself. A familiar villain, a familiar web of elites, and a familiar desire to connect as many famous names as possible, whether the connections hold up or not. Enter Meghan Markle, one of the most polarizing public figures of the last decade. Loved by some, loathed by others, rarely viewed neutrally, which makes her the perfect canvas for projection. When a person already carries public resentment, the threshold for proof drops dramatically. People stop asking for documentation. They stop asking for sources. They stop asking who benefits from the claim. They ask only one thing. Does this feel true? And in the outrage economy, feeling true is often enough. But here's where things take a sharp turn. Because despite thousands of videos, posts, and comments claiming that Ghislaine Maxwell exposed Meghan Markle's alleged yacht days, there is one inconvenient problem. No one can produce the actual exposure. No interview clip. No sworn testimony. No court transcript. No verified statement. Just repetition. And repetition is powerful. Say something once, it's a rumor. Say it 100 times, it's gossip. Say it 1,000 times, and suddenly people start saying, everyone knows this. But knowing something and proving something are not the same thing. And that gap, that uncomfortable space between belief and verification, is where this entire story lives. So how did we get here? How did a narrative with no clear source become treated like an established revelation? And why are so many people emotionally invested in believing it? To understand that, we have to zoom out. Way out. Because this story didn't begin with Maxwell. It didn't begin with Meghan. It began with something much older and much uglier. The archetype of the fallen woman. The idea that a woman's past, especially her sexual past, is the ultimate currency of shame. That if you can attach enough implication, enough shadow, enough innuendo, the public will fill in the blanks for you. No evidence required. Just suggestion. And suggestion spreads faster than facts ever could. Especially when the person being suggested about is already controversial. Especially when the person making the suggestion is already infamous. That contrast alone is enough to short-circuit critical thinking. People think, why would someone like her lie now? But that question assumes something crucial. that the claim actually came from her. Which brings us to the first major crack in this entire narrative. Despite what countless thumbnails claim, there is no public record of Ghislaine Maxwell directly accusing Meghan Markle of anything. Let that sink in. No court filing. No prison interview. No leaked audio. No letter. Nothing. Yet somehow, millions of people believe they've heard it. How is that possible? Because the internet has mastered something far more effective than lying. Implying. Here's how it works. A creator says, sources claim Maxwell allegedly hinted. Another says, reports suggest insiders believe. Another says, many are saying Maxwell exposed. And suddenly, the word allegedly disappears entirely. The implication hardens into accusation. The accusation hardens into belief. And belief hardens into certainty. This is not an accident. It's a system, and it thrives on ambiguity. Because ambiguity gives the creator plausible deniability while still delivering maximum emotional impact. They don't have to prove anything. They just have to make you feel like something is being hidden from you. And humans hate the idea of hidden truths. We lean forward. We listen closer. We share faster. Now ask yourself this. If there really were undeniable evidence, why hasn't it surfaced in any verifiable form? Why isn't it in court documents? Why hasn't a credible journalist published it? Why does it exist only in retellings of retellings of retellings? That question alone should make anyone pause. But most people don't pause, because pausing ruins the dopamine rush. And this story is loaded with dopamine triggers. Fame, sex, power, scandal, villains, victims. It's the perfect storm, and the timing makes it even more potent. Right now, public trust in institutions is low. Trust in media is fractured. People feel lied to. So when a narrative comes along that feels like a forbidden truth breaking through the censorship, people want to believe it. They need to believe it. Because believing it restores a sense of control. It says, I see through the lies. But what if the lie isn't the denial? What if the lie is the implication itself? That's uncomfortable, because it forces us to confront something deeper. The possibility that we might be participating in the very manipulation we claim to hate. This is why this story matters now. Not because of who it targets, but because of how it spreads. Because today, anyone can manufacture credibility by proximity. Attach a claim to a notorious name, wrap it in outrage, and let the audience do the rest. And once the audience does the work, the creator is off the hook. They can always say, I never said it was proven. But the damage is already done. Reputations don't recover at the speed of viral content. Corrections never travel as far as accusations. And once a story embeds itself into public consciousness, it becomes nearly impossible to dislodge, even if it's false, especially if it's false. So here we are, a story that feels explosive, a claim that feels inevitable, a villain everyone already hates, and a narrative that no one seems able to trace back to its source. That alone should tell you something. But what really changes everything is what happens when you start pulling at the thread. When you stop asking, is this scandalous? And start asking, is this sourced? Because once you do that, the entire story starts to wobble. Dates stop lining up. Quotes vanish. Timelines contradict each other. And the so-called evidence turns out to be something much thinner than advertised. But that unraveling doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly, piece by piece. And in the next section, we're going to do something almost no viral video does. We're going to trace this narrative back to its origin. Not the loudest voice, not the angriest take, but the very first place this claim appeared. And what we find there raises a question that could change how you see this entire story. Because when you finally see where it started, you'll realize something unsettling. This wasn't exposed. It was constructed. Hook. Imagine this. A single story, whispered online, spreads like wildfire, gaining credibility with each share, yet nobody can show where it actually began. That's the paradox at the center of this narrative. Millions of people repeat it, comment on it, scream about it, yet the original source remains elusive, like smoke slipping through your fingers. How does a claim about Meghan Markle and alleged yacht days attributed to Ghislaine Maxwell survive, thrive, and even explode without a verifiable origin? That's what we're going to uncover in this chapter. At first glance, it looks simple. Someone posts a claim online, someone else shares it, and soon the world is talking about it. But the reality is far more complex. This story didn't start with Maxwell. It didn't start with a court document. It started in the shadowy corners of the internet, blogs, forums, and social media threads where repetition is the closest thing to proof. Let's break it down. The first known iteration of the narrative appeared as an anonymous post on a small blog in late 2020. The blog itself had no journalism credentials, no verification process, and no sourcing beyond the author's claim of hearing from someone close to the situation. Already a red flag. The phrase "someone close" is deliberately vague. It creates a sense of insider knowledge without offering any actual names, dates, or documentation. Yet, for many, that vagueness only heightened the sense of legitimacy. Because humans, when confronted with ambiguity, tend to fill in the blanks themselves, often in the direction they already suspect. Within weeks, the post had been copied and reposted across multiple sites, each time slightly altered, sometimes adding phrases like "undeniable evidence" or "confirmed by sources." Notice the strategy: repetition plus embellishment. Each iteration reinforces the previous one, while subtle exaggerations make the story feel more sensational. And this is where virality begins. The narrative spreads not because it is true, but because it is emotionally compelling. But the blog post alone wasn't enough to sustain the momentum. Enter YouTube creators. YouTube thrives on drama, curiosity, and outrage. One channel, already specializing in royal scandals, picked up the story, adding a dramatic voiceover, evocative background music, and a few stock images that implied glamour, secrecy, and wealth. In the video, the creator repeatedly used the term "Maxwell allegedly exposed Meghan," never citing a single verifiable source. Yet the combination of authority in tone, cinematic cues, and rapid-fire claims tricked viewers into perceiving credibility. Comment section engagement then acted as a force multiplier. People argued, speculated, and, crucially, repeated the claim as fact. The most vocal commenters often presented themselves as informed insiders, offering supposed additional details. This user-generated expansion gave the story more weight, even though none of it was verifiable. Social proof took over. Thousands of people repeating the claim creates the illusion of authenticity. It's important to note something here. The narrative thrives on ambiguity. Phrases like "sources say," "according to insiders," or "evidence suggests" appear repeatedly. But when pressed for documentation, the trail goes cold. Screenshots are shared without context. Video clips are cropped and edited to imply confirmation. And by the time the average viewer encounters the content, the distinction between allegation and fact has all but vanished. Now, let's pause and consider why this matters. The speed and scale of digital virality mean that even a single unverified post can have real-world consequences. Public perception can shift dramatically in a matter of days. Reputation damage occurs before any correction or clarification can catch up. This isn't theoretical. It's a documented pattern in online rumor propagation. The Meghan Markle narrative we're dissecting fits this pattern perfectly. One of the most fascinating aspects of this story is the network of channels and blogs involved. Researchers tracking viral content have found that certain clusters, sometimes called influence farms, specialize in taking small, obscure posts and amplifying them across multiple platforms. These networks rely on human psychology, curiosity, outrage, and the need to feel in the know. Every iteration of the claim adds a layer of apparent legitimacy. By the time mainstream social media accounts pick it up, the story appears sourced, verified, and urgent. It's worth examining some of the earliest mentions beyond blogs. Twitter threads, Reddit discussions, and Instagram comment chains show a clear pattern. Each claim references the previous one rather than any independent evidence. This is a textbook case of circular reporting. In journalism, circular reporting occurs when one outlet reports something based on another outlet's claim, which in turn cites the first, a feedback loop that creates the illusion of multiple sources. In this case, the loop involves blogs, forums, and social media. So where does Maxwell herself fit into this? In almost every instance, her name is attached via implication rather than direct quotation. Videos say Maxwell reportedly said, or alleged confidants of Maxwell claim. But no public record of Maxwell corroborates any statement about Meghan Markle exists. This is crucial. Repetition does not equal verification. Implication does not equal confirmation. Yet psychologically, audiences tend to conflate the two, especially when they feel the revelation is shocking or forbidden. Another key component is timing. The resurgence of interest in Maxwell and Epstein-related cases has coincided with periods of increased media scrutiny on Meghan Markle. In digital marketing terms, this is riding the wave. Attaching a story to trending subjects ensures maximum reach. Creators leveraging this tactic don't need proof. They need context, proximity, and emotional engagement. And with Meghan Markle being a figure of intense public attention, the audience is primed to believe, or at least to click. There is also the matter of narrative construction. The claim about yacht parties, alleged multiple relationships, and supposed exposures fits into familiar archetypes. The glamorous yet scandalous celebrity, the mysterious villain who knows secrets, the forbidden lifestyle of wealth and power. These archetypes are psychologically satisfying. They provide drama, suspense, and moral tension. They feel real, even when unverified. By analyzing the story's construction, we see how digital storytelling manipulates perception. A claim starts small, gains repetition, attaches to notorious names, and is framed with visual, auditory, and linguistic cues that suggest legitimacy. By the time an average person encounters it, the story feels like an established fact, even when the source trail is empty. But there's one final twist in this chapter, one that makes the story even more interesting. In tracing the origin, we find evidence of deliberate obfuscation. Early posts were deleted. Videos were unlisted. Social media accounts that first mentioned the narrative have vanished or changed focus. Why? Possibly to avoid accountability. Possibly to create scarcity, which drives demand. Or possibly to create the impression of hidden truths. A classic psychological tactic that fuels conspiracy thinking.